Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch back up with my friend Guitze Messina. He's the executive director of HARDI LATAM. He was originally the executive director and really kind of founded and pushed the incurrence into Mexico from the HARDI Distribution Association. And he's just, grown that in leaps and bounds. I mean, if you ever meet Guy, he's just so enthusiastic. I mean, he's just, friendly, outgoing. It's fun to be around him. And so it's no wonder that, they've really expanded that reach. He'll tell you, I think he says 9 countries over 3 continents. I mean, he's really expanded this reach. But what we really wanted to talk about was he came out with a new sales book called Moneycall. And it's written in an interesting format. It's not like your typical sales manual or sales direction type of book or, kind of a lecture, do this, don't do that. He actually decided to write it in the form of a story or a fable. And I thought that was really kind of fascinating. And actually, some of the readers or some of the folks who have reviewed it on Amazon, they really appreciate that style. So I was curious why he wrote it in that fashion. And then he and I get into a little bit about, the proactive side of selling. And that's really his assertion, is that that's really what distributors need to focus on. Absolutely enjoy every time I get a chance to speak to Guy. So had a fun time in this conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Economy doesn't mean compromise. This company is on the cutting edge of distribution-friendly applications like VMI on mobile devices, mobile signature capture, mobile CRM, warehouse management software, and e-commerce development. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. Well, hello, Guy. Welcome back to Distribution Talk. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Hey, Jason. I'm really happy to be back, and hopefully I won't bore anybody saying the same thing twice, right?
Well, I think you've got plenty cooking that I don't know if you're going to be repeating yourself. You got a lot cooking right now. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to kind of find out what you've been up to and really what has kind of shaped the last few years for you. But if you wouldn't mind just kind of reminding those folks who may not have listened to the first session that we did together, a little bit about your background and kind of how you got involved with association management and that side.
Absolutely. So first, I was actually a consultant for about 10 years because I was an industrial engineer. I came from the manufacturing side, and then I got an MBA. And when I was hired as a consultant, I was the management consulting base in the city that I was at. And I remember when they said, okay, so now you got to go out and sell projects before you can do consulting on those. And I said, selling, but I'm a consultant. How can I sell? And people are really, they laugh at my face when I say I did not like selling. I really
Sure.
disliked it tremendously because to me, selling is someone that bothers you when you enter a store to buy pants, someone that is in your face trying to push things at you, trying to convince you. And I actually feel that the definition of selling is perhaps the best way to recruit a good salesperson. You ask them, what is selling to you? And if they say convincing, if they say changing someone's mind, it's closing. If they say anything but helping the client buy whatever they need, if they say anything but helping, don't hire those guys because they're going to be pushing all the time.
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's basically my background in a nutshell. Now, I got involved with HARDI because as a consultant for an AC company, HARDI was trying to open a division for Mexico, and they were having a hard time finding someone that was bilingual in Columbus, Ohio. no surprise there.
Hmm.
So they started calling some manufacturers in Florida and Texas because they would probably know who was bilingual and knew the two cultures of the United States and also Latin America.
Sure.
And this air conditioning company was actually working with me as a consultant when I was doing the labels for efficiency in Colombia.
Hmm.
Then they liked the job that I did, and they hired me to do Mexico and then Ecuador and some other countries. And when they called this AC company, they said, "Well, we're working with a consultant that has a business background. He's also an engineer. I think he would do great in what you're asking. Perhaps you need to talk to him."
Hmm.
And the rest is history. So HARDI Mexico was born, and obviously we needed to sell the concept of HARDI all over Latin America because it's well known here in the US, but in Latin America nobody knows what HARDI is, right?
And just to clarify, Hardy, for those of you not in the HVAC space, it's the Heating and Refrigeration Distributors International. And actually, it's interesting that they called themselves international, and they really weren't before. Yeah, they called
Well,
themselves that for a long time, and then maybe they picked up a little
they had a
Canadian.
presence in
Yeah, they're
Canada.
little Canadians.
So when
I
I
would
came in,
agree.
I said, I am the guy that came in to dot the I in HARDI, right?
Ah, there you go. Very good. All right,
All right.
I
So
gotcha.
so HARDI Mexico was born, and actually the easiest way to sell comes into a beautiful story about what has happening with distributors in Latin America.
Yeah.
Was I'm sitting with the board of directors of Hardy, and I said, "Look, I need a lot of help, guys. These guys are very successful. They've been doing this for 50, 60 years, and the worst enemy of your future success is your past success."
Hmm.
And they say, "Well, how about if you come and visit us and you can show them some of the best practices that we have implemented?"
Hmm.
And that was the Wear Group. And who doesn't know the Wear Group outside of HVAC? But they're the number one in Johnston
Yeah.
Supply. So they're obviously doing things right. And that was the beginning of opening eyes in Latin America. These guys were really surprised about what all these things that they were doing with the ERP and making decisions based on data and being proactive on the sales side on one side and being reactive on another
Hmm.
side. So a lot of the things that they never heard before. And now things start to move, and 7 years later, we have to change from Hardy Mexico to Hardy Latam because there were so many manufacturers that wanted their distributors to come in and be part of Hardy so they could take advantage of all the good practices that we were teaching, not only on the sales side, but also on the management of the business side. And that created the need to change into Hardy Latam. So now we're in 9 different countries, 3 different continents, and continuing to expand. So it's a beautiful story.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you ask me, what is the biggest difference that I noticed between when we started and today, is making decisions based on data.
Hmm.
The Latinos just looked at sales. Just show me sales. They never looked at profit. They never looked at sales per employee.
Sure, sure.
They never looked at PPR, personal productivity ratio. So a lot of those KPIs that help you manage the business, they had no idea about.
Mhm.
And this is something that I think has changed tremendously. And we have also seen the sales per employee go up. When we started, the highest sales per employee was 29,000.
Mhm, mhm.
Just so people understand, in our industry in the United States, the top performers are about 165,000 per month per
And
employee,
sales per employee?
sales per employee.
Gotcha.
So
Mm,
29,000. Now we have a couple at 42,000. I'm not going to say it's all
mm.
because of Hardy, it's all because of what we've done. All right. But
Sure.
certainly, I think we have contributed a lot into that progress. Maybe not 100%, maybe not 20, 30, 50, whatever percentage, but certainly an important percentage of that growth.
Well, and I think that, the programming that you're putting together, but also not only the exposure, some of the things, that you teach, that you go and personally do sessions on, but some of the folks that you've invited to your meetings, but also the visits up to other people, not only the Ware group, but I know some other Hardy distributors have also been open, to visits from, at that time, Hardy Mexico, but now the Latam group. I think all of those things are contributing, Guy. I really do. I mean, I think just, gosh, the more that you can kind of step aside from yourself and the practices you've been doing for so long and see, hey, there is another way to do this. It's bound to produce results. It just absolutely is bound to produce results.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So the webinars, we do between 1 and 3 webinars per month. This month we're doing 3. So that's a big difference. The visits to other distributors, the Hardy conferences,
Yeah.
and the Hardy LATAM conferences, where we bring people from the States. This year, we're bringing a distributor from the United States that speaks Spanish because they're right there on the border
Yeah.
with their top dealer, meaning their top contractor, who pays a fee every year in order to get marketing and other
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Okay. And
That's always an odd one, isn't it? I mean, that was something that I when I first started working with Hardy distributors, HVAC folks, is that the contractor actually pays to be part of this marketing support. They pay to be this dealer.
right.
Now, obviously, they're hopefully, they're betting on the come. They're saying that, they are going to earn enough in rebates and again, marketing assistance and education that, the fee they pay is going to be negligible. But that was always a strange concept. And I suspect that that's a strange concept for your group as well.
Well, 4% of the contractors on average are dealers. Now,
Mhm.
they are responsible for 60% of the sales.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And if you think about it, that is the Pareto analysis
Mhm,
squared. So
mhm.
20% of 20% is 4%. And 80% of 80% is 64%. So
Okay.
4% giving you 60% of sales, that's pretty common. Now,
Mm.
there is science behind this, and I don't think a lot of people have done it because they knew the science, but the science is a distributor buys on a recurrent basis from the manufacturing. So the manufacturer has 20 to 50 distributors all over the US, and every month they get orders from the same distributors.
Mhm.
And the distributors have a recurrent sales with their contractors. So every month, every week, every 2 days, they have recurrent sales.
Yes.
Now, the contractor doesn't have that luxury. They sell either to the residential or to the commercial space.
Mhm.
And whoever buys an air conditioner for their home is not going to buy air conditioning for the home in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. It's not a monthly or weekly transaction. This is a
Exactly.
much longer sales cycle for repeat customers. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And the same thing with the commercial. So now, in order for you to break that, so there is a pull system with the recurrent sales all through the chain, you need to help the contractor in what the contractor doesn't do well. And what is it that he doesn't do well?
Right.
Marketing. That is certainly one thing that they don't do well. They don't do well business recording, costing, sales. They don't do that well. They think that everything is price. So everything that we can do to help them in those 3 aspects of the business, we're going to help ourselves by making a pull system from the contractor to the distributor to the
Mm.
manufacturer.
Mhm.
And that is the reason for the dealer system. And we want to implement that in Latin America. And that's why we're bringing these folks speaking Spanish over
Sure.
to Mexico City in
Sure.
October.
No, I think it's fantastic. Again, trying something a little bit different, trying to increase that revenue, per head is really. I mean, these are good goals and good metrics to really hang your hat on as you're selling, and you're telling a story as well. I mean, you're telling a story, and you're convincing, again, a generation of people that have done things a certain way for a long time. Could be multiple generations, of course, but yeah, you've got to have those success stories, and you have to prove yourself. You have to show it. You can't just talk about it. You have to prove yourself.
Yes. And it's easier when you bring somebody who's been doing it and they speak Spanish and they're Latinos, and it happens that it just doesn't work in the US. It works with everybody and in every region. So
Right.
it's a
Right.
beautiful concept that we need to bring
Yeah.
back into LATAM.
Oh, no, and I think it's just fantastic, that you are growing so much. One question I had, though, how do you handle, like, Brazilians, that are primarily Portuguese speaking? How do you handle that? Or are you even, attempting to work with t those markets?
We haven't attempted to go into Brazil strongly for one main reason. Brazil is a protectioning economy. They protect everything that is made in Brazil.
Okay.
They have a very complex tax system. If you think the tax system all over Latin America is complex, go Brazil.
Really?
Brazil, the consultants will tell you if the government wants to get you, they will.
Mm,
I am going to make it harder for them to do it, but if they want to get you, they will. It is very complex.
mm.
So they try to think that by helping people manufacture in Brazil, they're actually helping the economy and they're actually creating poverty because you're helping 5,000 people that manufacture stuff over there. But then you have 200 million that are buying the most expensive anything. If you look at everything that Brazil manufactures, it's extremely expensive. And that
Okay.
is the reason we haven't gone into Brazil.
Okay.
Maybe with the new change in Argentina,
Mm,
who's changing from the old philosophy to the free market economy,
mm.
I think that Argentina could be a good place to hang our hat in the near future.
Sounds good. Yeah, sorry for that tangent. I just thought about that, though, and you kept saying Spanish speaking, Spanish speaking. I'm like, "Well, what about these guys down here?" But,
Yeah,
um
it's nothing because of the language, it's because of the tax system and the
That's
protectionism.
really interesting. No, I appreciate that. So let's chat a little bit. So you you wrote a book. You decided to take the plunge. This is all good consultants. We all have to try it at least once. Just to see if we can actually do this, and if we have the intestinal fortitude to make it through the whole process. But you did. So let's talk a little bit about the book that just came out.
Absolutely. Well, this is actually my fourth book.
Really? Oh, so you're a veteran at this. You know what you're doing.
But this is my first sales book. And
Gotcha.
I had so many requests from people saying, Guy, what you're doing is great. This new system that you have is great. What we are implementing is creating 20 to 35% growth in the different companies that we have implemented. Is there somewhere that we can go and read this stuff? And I said, well, if I actually write it, it won't be in Spanish because Latinos don't read and they crack up.
Huh.
And I said,
Okay.
and the Latinos that do read, they speak English. So I'm going to write it in English because
Okay.
I think we will have a wider audience by doing that.
Sure.
And that is
Okay.
the reason why I decided to write it in English.
Hmm.
And you were also very keen into why did I write it as a story, as a fable, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the thing, So in researching this a bit, I ran across. So I went on Amazon and I saw the book, and I started looking through some of the reviews. And one review said that I really enjoyed this sales fable about building an inside sales process, and I thought that was a really interesting description. And so, yeah, tell us a little bit about why you decided to go sales fable, and that's this person's words, but more of a story instead of a I don't know, everybody else talking about
A
process.
typical
Yeah,
sales
typical
book.
sales book, ego aggrandizing sometimes, but why did you write it as a story?
Right. So I have three reasons for that. The first one is I wanted people to be a protagonist. I wanted them to feel like they are the star. And in our industry, this is something that happens very frequently when a new generation comes into the business and they have new ideas and they want to implement them. And then the father says, I'm not so sure. But in this case, in the story, that the father says, look, I'm opening a new store. You go ahead and manage it with your new theories. See what happens. Because I just don't want to be like my old father who said no to everything I said. But before I try to change anything in the whole system, you make it work over there and then we'll talk.
We have a test. Yeah, we have a test case out here. Yeah, you got this. Yeah,
Exactly,
okay. All
exactly.
right.
Which is a beautiful thing. I mean, I wish that every father would do that for their son in
Mhm.
our industry. I
Yeah.
don't think that would happen very many times. But obviously, I felt that that would put people into the story like they were actually trying to make this thing work.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of questions in the story. Do people really buy from me, or do I sell? And that is something that is key in analyzing your company. Is it because the phone is ringing that you're selling,
Right.
or is it
Right.
because you're making it ring on the other side that you're selling?
Are you a salesperson or are you an order taker?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that takes us to being proactive or being reactive. And when we are reactive, we have no control of the process. The customer is on the seat. He is the one determining where we go. And actually, if you think about it, you don't even need a CRM that much when you are reactive, because the customer is telling you what he needs and you don't have
Right.
time to look at the CRM. Now, when you are proactive, you need information because you are going to make this call. You
Right.
want to see exactly what is the pattern of buying that this guy had. You want to see what is it that, based on what he already purchases, what is it that he is not buying. So you can also make that type 2 call that we call, when you're saying, hey, you normally buy A. Now, is there any reason why you never buy B for that?
Right.
And then the customer 80% of the time says, well, I didn't even know you had B. And
Yeah.
that comes into my second reason why I wanted to write the book. I wanted to be a fable because I felt that it had a lot of data. And if I wanted to be scientific about the whole process of being proactive versus reactive, and I also wanted to look at recurrent sales as a different breed of sales,
Hmm.
if I went too much into data alone, it would make it really crude and people would probably not be as interested as if
Right.
it was presented in a fable where they said, 20% of our closing ratio is due to we following up our quotes. So if we want to increase our closing ratio without quoting anymore, all we need to do is follow up
Yeah.
every quote that we do. And that is a beautiful way to present statistics, but at the same time, in a way that sounds like what you normally would do every day in your industry.
And it also seems very data analytical. I mean, I think, and I think sometimes that turns people off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, if I could for a moment, Guy, I wanted to go
Sure.
back to, the proactive versus reactive inside sales
Yes.
team.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, one thing that just kind of occurred to me is as you were talking, when you do a proactive selling process, you actually can carve out the time, the pre time before you actually pick up the phone. And you can do that research. Or, if you have your CRM that helps you, like an interactive CRM or something, an AI driven CRM or something of that nature, but you have that window of time that you actually can map out, what do I want to do here?
Absolutely. But the reason for that is that in order to be proactive, you need to focus. And this is the biggest problem when we are reactive. So we have two
Hmm.
people in our inside sales department. They're handling 1,500 clients. And out of the 1,500 clients, let's say 20% are the ones that buy regularly.
Hmm.
So you're getting anywhere between 400 to 600 people calling every month to this two people in department, inside sales department.
Right.
They don't have enough time to breathe in high season during the summer months when the phone is ringing all the time.
Yeah.
So, in order to change that, you need to make an 80/20 analysis, a Pareto analysis, and then you need to find which are the real clients that are buying from you,
Right.
because the other ones are just quoting, not necessarily buying. And now that you have that data, then you need to say, okay, so out of the 20% that buy my 80%, the next 100 clients are the ones that I'm going to pick in order to start my new proactive sales system. Because if I give any more than 100 clients to this person, they're not going to be making calls. They're going to be taking calls because they have too many clients again.
Sure.
So you need to control the amount of clients first, and then you can ask them to be proactive because, like you said, they will have the time. They
Right.
can make the analysis, they can determine what type of call they need to make, and now they can go ahead and make the call. Will they speak to 100% of the customers? No.
Mm-hmm.
But then that comes into the reverse Pareto, which is
Mm-hmm.
20% of your activities provide 80% of your results. So your job is to concentrate on those activities that provide the most likelihood of getting sales. And what is that? Conversation with clients.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens until you talk to a client. There is no quote, there is no follow up,
Mm-hmm.
there is nothing that happens until you are talking. That's why in reactive selling, we say you don't need to do as much prospecting. You even better if you don't do prospecting, because prospecting actually takes a lot of time
Yeah.
and it doesn't provide a lot of sales. And in a recurrent sales industry like ours, you don't need to be looking for as many clients. You need to be finding the ones that buy and what is it that they need so you can help them buy. Taking time, like if you were selling software,
Mm.
if you were selling cars, if you were selling real estate, if you were selling
Mm-hmm.
life insurance,
Yeah.
now they need prospecting, but not in our industry.
Right.
And that's why one of the 5 questions that are very important that we ask, especially now at the beginning of the year, is what percentage of everything you buy do you buy from us?
Yes.
Because the salesperson will understand that, wow, he's only buying 20%. Now you have so much opportunity for growth. Instead of going out to look for somebody thinking that, hey, I can't sell to Jason anymore because he buys 100% from me.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I ask Jason, he says he buys 20%. Oh my God, I got 80% opportunity here. Why am I wasting my time looking for another Jason when Jason already buys from me?
Well, I think this is, Guy, this is something that I speak about a lot, but I truly believe in is this category participation, measurement. And, to your point, if we look at what we would consider a really good customer, and the salesperson might say, hey, I get everything that they can buy. When we actually find out that you're right, it's a smaller percentage of the available categories that we sell. And I mean, I think that's just an analysis point that really, if you really want to figure out if you are penetrating a customer as far as you possibly can, you've got to do that analysis. You got to step back and say, well, how many product categories are they buying in?
Yes.
And chances are it's going to be a small number. And I think that's a very awakening moment.
Yes.
And some will be upset about that. And some will say, what an opportunity.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're looking for, is those that say, what an opportunity.
And one of the things that kills that opportunity is actually the sales manager. When they say, well, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. So
Fair point. Yeah, fair point.
instead of selling to 5 customers, I want to sell to 50 customers. And what happens, I turn that into an analogy. People crack up.
Mm,
You're probably going to laugh when I say
mm.
this, but I would say, okay, so that is like your wife coming over to you and saying, hey, Jason, I'm going to need 5 Jasons, because if you happen to just want to go out with your friends one day, or you don't come back on time another day, I need to have backup in case you fail me once. So I want to have 4 more
I think
Jasons.
my wife's going to need like 10 or 20, but the amount of times I fail. So, all right.
But that is something that makes people realize that's obviously not the way to handle a successful marriage. So what you want to
Correct.
do is understand what is it that they need
Yeah.
and help them as much as they can so they don't need to go anywhere else. And those 5 clients can give you more sales every year. So that's why the 4% of the dealers can give you 60% of all the sales that a lot of the distributors in our industry have.
Guy, and I think what's fascinating is, all right, so we pick this group of contractors that we really want to go after, this clientele. And unfortunately, and this is what I've seen over the years, is that we push that group into the hands of territory salespeople, field salespeople,
Mhm.
where they don't have the time and bandwidth to really go as deep. I feel like that the analytical side and I don't know, getting in front of a system, pulling data and really making a concerted effort at trying to drive in. I feel like that's a better inside sales play myself. I mean, and that's just perhaps it's my inside sales bias, but I don't know. What do you think about that one?
Absolutely. So the good thing about Hardy is I feel that Hardy is my lab.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
So I get
yeah.
to see some of the best distributors in the world, and I get to compare between one and the other. I have to keep my mouth shut where I've seen this and where I've
Sure.
seen the other, but it's my lab. And the best practice that I've seen is for territory managers, they never have more than 30
Yeah.
accounts.
Yeah.
If you need more than 30 accounts, you need to handle it into the inside sales department until they become large enough
Yeah.
that you can give those 30 or 25 to 30 to a new territory
Mm.
manager. Until you can't do that,
Mhm.
then you have to handle it with the inside salespeople. And again, the same thing. Inside salespeople, they cannot have more than 100 clients if you want them to be proactive. You want them to be reactive, it's okay. You can give them 500.
But that's really not selling, that's customer service. I think that's a different yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's not selling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not as effective. You're not going to grow by doing that, because then what you're doing is just pricing and giving price out to people who are calling you. You don't have
Mhm.
control of the process. And you can now ask questions, because what is selling is getting information.
Mhm.
If you don't get
Mhm.
information, you're not selling. So I normally would say, hey, Jason, I see that you buy 1 ton units every month, mini split units every month,
Mm.
but it's
Mhm.
been a month and a half since you bought the last time. Is there any reason for that?
Right.
And now that information allows you to solve what's going on in Jason's mind. Maybe he forgot.
Yep.
Maybe he didn't think about what's coming up in his pipeline. Whatever.
Mhm.
You need to get that information. So now you
Maybe Jason's retiring.
maybe
Maybe
he's
Jason's
retiring.
folding up the book. Yeah.
Maybe there's somebody else trying to pull him over,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe he's buying another line.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're asking the right questions to see what is it that you need to do.
Do you think, I think that's an interesting point in that we tend to, and I'm going to say that we as a distributor and distributor salespeople tend to find out changes in buying behaviors way later than we should. I mean, it's just it's way later. Whereas if we were proactive salespeople and we were using software and using tools at our disposal, we would see that change in buying behavior much quicker.
Absolutely. Because the reason to have 100 clients for an inside salesperson is so you can touch them at least once every month.
Yeah.
That is the main
Yeah.
thing. So if you have information every month, what's going on in their lives, what is it that they need, now you can adapt to any changes that may be coming along. When you're reactive, first, like we said before, you're at their mercy.
Yeah.
They are the ones controlling and asking, hey, I need this right now. I want it. Hey, get it for me. What's a quote? What's a price? Where do you have it? How long would it take? You don't have the time to analyze anything. So that's why we're late to the party when it comes to changes.
Yeah.
And I've seen some people that are great at being reactive. I mean, the best practice of being reactive is 15 seconds before you pick up the phone. That if you do pick it up after 16, we're in the red.
Mhm.
You need to do it at 15 or less,
Right.
or 3 rings or
Right.
less.
The old 3-ring
And
rule.
people
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
they measure this. And I say, well, yeah, that's a great thing to do, but you're still being reactive. Wouldn't it
Yeah.
be better to measure the amount of calls that you actually make? And this is a big change.
Yeah. And it's interesting. One of the things, kind of going back on the proactive side, there are several tools that are coming out right now. And especially as we start to see, artificial intelligence permeate all different aspects of our business. But we're starting to see tools that really can help that inside sales, proactive salesperson, really capture more of the spend, capture more of the wallet of that 100 clients that they're responsible for.
Absolutely. And that's why the last chapter is just about that. You can't do anything without technology these days. That's the name of the chapter,
Yeah.
right? So AI will take a lot of that time away from the analysis. So imagine if Jason has to look at Guy's purchasing in the last 6 months.
Mhm.
So he's gonna have to look really deep. Okay, so last month he bought this, and the month before he did that, and the month before he did that. It's gonna take you
Yep.
10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to find what is it that he is breaking in the buying cycle. But if you can just go in and say, what is it that Jason has stopped buying in his regular buying patterns from everything that he buys? And he gives you three things. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So instead of wasting 15 minutes for that analysis, now it took maybe a minute. So from that, you can infer that if we had those tools, then maybe that inside salesperson can handle 150 clients instead of 100 clients.
Yeah, it makes a more productive call, first of all. I mean, because you just really have a faster access to the data. Now, can you dig in and get that data elsewhere? Sure, you could, but it would be report after report and paste and slice and dice to try to figure out one suggestion when you made that call. But some of the tools that I've seen recently where literally the CRM is set up that it, will state what is in decline, what items did they used to buy and are in decline. But then it also has a section that's saying, here's some suggestions to put out there that other companies of their similar size and trade, they would definitely buy these products from us. So these are suggestives. And so, I mean, honestly, you get a report like this, again, 15 minutes before that call, and you're like, okay, I have got a game plan when I make this phone call.
Absolutely. Without taking the 15 minutes, because this is probably going to be done in
Right.
1 to 2 minutes. And the other thing that you can think about is pricing, because this is just one area. But then they're going to say,
Hmm.
look, normally this customer buys at 250.
Hmm.
Perhaps if you try 255, you can increase your margin and he
Yeah.
would mind. So that also is something else that it's going to come along. And there are five different softwares that are going to change distribution. And
Mm.
certainly a lot of it has to do with AI. But AI, CRM, the pricing, and also the inventory management side.
Yep.
How much do you need to buy? Where you need to put it? When do you need to
Right.
buy it? And at the same time, you can increase the service level by reducing the inventory. And a lot of the ERP people don't like me saying this because everything I've seen is ERPs, they say that they do this well, but from what I've seen, you need a specialized software to handle the inventory side and the purchasing side to be more successful, improve your service level, and reduce your inventory. And it's amazing. I have a couple of distributors that have done it in Latin America, and they just love it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the ERPs, I mean, they are racing to adopt AI practices. I mean, I know that a lot of them are trying to figure out where it fits, just like everybody else. I mean, these aren't magicians here. They have to figure out where it fits. So there's kind of two divergent paths there. Either figure out how it fits internally and bake it into your update and bake it into your software, or you find those best tools and you align yourself with those third-party packages and you create API links to it. So yeah, I think everybody's trying to race to this the best they possibly can. And I love seeing people. I mean, I have to throw in a shameless plug. I love my friend, our friend Nelson, with Intualize, that his company is really one of those third parties that does interact very well with a lot of ERPs.
Absolutely. We're going to have him in a webinar. Actually, we're going to be doing pricing with him
That'd
because,
be good.
like I told you before, it's one of those five softwares that are going to change distribution in the next 5 to 10 years.
I love you bilingual guys. I mean, I tell you, you folks that, can go back because, Nelson can go down and speak at one of your events in Spanish, and then he can come up in the United States and speak in English. I mean, I just covering both sides.
Beautiful, beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think, one of the great things about you putting together this book is really driving the notion of proactive selling. And this is not something that's absolutely a new concept, but I think we have not over the, and this is, again, this is a 40-year career of doing this, that we have not invested the money in that inside proactive selling machine. Some have gotten pretty good at it. And I know a couple of people, I shouldn't say everybody, I know a couple of people have gotten extraordinarily good at it. But I think it really comes down to the definition. Inside sales is not one thing. There is the reactive customer service piece, the new proactive selling piece, and then there's the territory piece. I mean, so I think that by spreading out those roles and really defining what you want out of each one of those, that is going to create a very successful selling machine.
Beautiful. But I would say it all starts with understanding recurrent sales,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen too many distributors in our industry and distribution overall. It doesn't matter if it's HVAC or something else. Usually,
Yeah.
distribution is recurrent sales.
I would say most of the industries I work in, the vertical markets and distribution I work in, are small transaction, rapid transactions, multiple
Exactly.
transactions. Yeah.
Recurrent sales. So, what happens is in a recurrent sales industry, if you start to want to do prospecting, you're going to fall in your productivity
Mm,
because you are spending too much time doing the wrong thing, looking for a client that is already buying from somebody else. And your clients want to buy from you the same as somebody else's clients want to buy from them.
mhm,
So instead of wasting all that time, go back to your 80/20.
mhm, mhm,
Learn what is it that your client actually wants, and then spend the time nurturing and understanding their needs. If you go away and do the three killers of recurrent sales, I'm going to say prospecting, presenting, and closing.
hmm,
Those are the three activities that kill the most dreams of any salesperson in the world. You need those three when you sell insurance, when you sell software, when you sell once in a big
mhm,
time
mhm,
industry. But when you're in recurrent sales, you don't need to do prospecting, you don't need to do as much presenting, and you certainly don't need to do a lot of closing.
mhm.
You just need to ask questions. Let them buy.
Is there a point, Guy, and I'm just kind of throwing out, playing the devil's advocate. Is there a point when you feel like you've really worked your client base well enough that there is time for that business development?
Oh, beautiful question. So in the book,
Mm,
I normally stay away from prospecting because
yeah.
what happens is if you serve your clients well,
Mhm, mhm.
you will deserve to get a referral.
Okay, okay.
I'm going to repeat that because that is so easy, but people miss.
Sure, sure.
So if you serve your customer well, you will deserve to get a referral.
Mhm,
And if you build a referral machine, and there is a system that we use obviously in the book Moneycall, that you need to, after 10 successful deliveries, you need to ask, hey, Jason, as other contractors that you may know
mhm.
would appreciate the same kind of service that you've liked for the last 10 deliveries that we've done, would you happen to know someone like you who would like me to see if I can serve them as well? And then they can give you a name or not. 30% of the time they will. Okay. 70% of the time they won't. But now,
Right.
if they give you, let's say it's 10%, they've give you one name, 50% of that sale is done because now,
Mhm,
hey, either Jason makes the introduction or Jason says something that it's really important, and I make it into a page, a letter that I use as a recommendation with different customers. Either Jason gives me an introduction over the phone or an email introduction, or he just gives
mhm.
me the information and says I can use his name. Whatever system I use, sales are going to be infinitely easier if I do that. So, yes, there is a space for it, usually way down the road,
Okay.
because what you're going to see is that a typical distributor may have anywhere between 1,500 to 4,000 clients, depending on the city and the size, right?
Mhm.
So, 20% of those are giving 80% of your sales.
Right.
So, you still have a lot of clients that you need to do a money call system to call frequently
Yes.
in order to get the sales. It's going to take you a while.
I totally agree. No, no, I really agree with that approach. And again, in studying this for a long time, looking at distributors that have only maybe, let's say they've got a potential of 50 different product categories and they're only scratching the surface in about 10 to 15 of them. You've got a lot of places to play. You've got a ton of you've got a lot of runway there for
Absolutely.
sure.
I'm going to give you an example because obviously examples are great. So there's one distributor that's been working with the system for 2 years. And they came up to me about 4 months ago and they said, hey, Guy, I don't have any more clients to tackle. And I said, are you sure? Let me see your 80/20. And they had about 300 clients. And
Okay.
out of those 300, there were some that were final customers that in Latin America, unfortunately, some distributors do sell to final customers instead of contractors. So I said, look,
Okay.
let's concentrate on contractors because those are the recurrent sales.
Okay.
Okay. So let's pick the 100 that have the most probability based on the amount of sales that they had in the last 2 years. So we took those and we trained a new person to do outside proactive calling. And the first month, they sold $2,000. The second month, they sold $10,000. The third month, they sold $25,000.
Hmm.
And now they're on the fourth month, and the guy is on its way to do 50. And they expect him to reach $100,000 by the end of the year. So that is going to double the amount of sales per employee that the company on average has. So if you can
Yeah.
add one employee and that employee can do twice the regular amount of sales per employee that you did before, your average is going to raise.
Hmm.
And this is basically what we need in order to bring somebody else into the business. Because again, we just want them to call 100 customers. And
Hmm.
it happens that this guy was the watchman outside of the complex. The guy that was making sure that everybody parked right and that nobody stole any
Oh, that's
hubcaps or
interesting.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
They posted the position and the guy said, I can do that. And they said, well, let's see if he can do
Let's
it.
give it a shot, pal. Yep.
And there he went.
Yeah,
And it was beautiful. So
that's good.
there's so many things that happen when you're proactive. And this is a beautiful
Yeah.
story for it.
Well, Guy, I'm looking at the time. I hate to cut us off. I mean, you and I could talk for hours and hours about this kind of stuff, but we do have to bring this to a close. Before I let you go, where can people find Money Call? Where can they find that book?
All right. So it's on Amazon and you can get it on Kindle or you can get it printed as well. It's going to
Okay.
look blue and it's going to have a weird name on the bottom, Guitze Messina, right? And actually, pretty interesting because it has already 7 reviews and 4.8 average.
Yeah,
I'm pretty proud of that. I'll probably share the link with you and I'll share my
sure.
LinkedIn link as well so people can reach out to me. I really appreciate people reaching out and giving me ideas. And that's what we want to do for the second edition of the book. We just don't want to be the only writer. I want people to say, hey, we actually came up with an idea because of this and that. And this has
Yeah,
worked in such a way that I think you should try it out. And then I have my lab, right?
right.
So I can put it into practice. And if it works, put it in the book.
Sure. No, that sounds great. We will make sure that we provide those links in the show notes, and of course, LinkedIn to you. And hey, Guy, it's always a pleasure, man. I love your energy. Around this. You're very passionate about this, and it's exciting. And really, congratulations on the growth of what was originally HARDI Mexico. Was a thought in that board meeting. Hey, maybe we should consider Mexico, bringing Mexico into the HARDI universe here. But again, they couldn't have picked a better leader, and you've really driven this thing, way beyond their
Well, I
expectations.
have to say, if it wasn't for the Hardy team, I wouldn't be here because those guys make me really smart. Brian, for example, he shares a lot of data with me,
Yeah,
and I really admire everything he does. Tim as well, and the
yeah.
talent team. I couldn't say enough about Talbot himself. He pushes me hard. I have to say,
He is definitely a hard driver.
the
So yeah,
members, the members. I learned so much from them.
yeah,
And if you're humble, if you have desire, if you have an open mind, they want to teach you stuff. And that
yeah.
is a beautiful thing about Hardy. People are open to show you their best practices, especially because we don't compete against them. But it also helps me when I see one of the top distributors every year and I compare what they do and I learn. It's beautiful. And I have to
Wow.
say, I had the best school in that.
All right. Well, hey, again, thank you for taking the time to be with me, and I look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Absolutely, Jason. Looking forward to seeing you again. You take care, my man.
All right. Take care. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, Products and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.